5% new.
Why would you just say a whole new offense?
That QB sneak is the same.
Aaron gave us a new signal, and I looked at Jordy, and I'm like, what is that? And he's like, Tampa. I said, what do I have?
I used to look at D'Amico and be like, hey, big dog, yo, who blitzing on rain? He's like, Acho, you go. All right.
It's a lot of moving parts.
All right, break. I know what I got. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I got. Hey, Dom, what I got? I know you hear me. He like, why did he? Dom, what I got? He still don't tell me. I'm like, Dom, what I got? The mouthpiece is spit out. If I don't know the play, I just get in the middle like I'm doing something.
You will only find this on Speak. Especially rookies. Oh, what a conversation, what a show, y'all. We're having a blast. We hope you are too. Jalen Hurts, he's had a blast in some of his NFL seasons. The one he went to a Super Bowl where he was an all-pro, but last season was not as fun. Remember, the Eagles started off 10-0, I believe it was, and then lost a lot of games, got bounced in the first round to Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you're talking about the Eagles, you better be talking to the all-time rushing leader, LaShawn Shady McCoy, and I have the privilege of doing so. Now, a friend of ours, I would say, Shady, Mike Quick, Eagles former receiver.
That's my guy.
He was in the building when you and I were both in the building. He had some statements about the Eagles. He said, look, Jalen Hurts has to understand this league, it's about what have you done for me lately. That's real. Jalen Hurts lately struggled with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you think he has anything to prove this season?
Yeah, he does. He does. You know, it's funny with Jalen Hurts, like just looking at his resume. He's the type of guy that he gets better each year. Now, I don't know what it was last year because that was not the case at all, right? And my thing is, when you talk about pressure, how could a quarterback with that much money, right, and you think that it's his spot, have so much pressure? Well, I start thinking about it. Last year when I watched the Eagles, I think the worst part of our team was the defense, right? The second part of the team I think was bad. It was the effort on defense. Guys not tackling, not stopping the run, throwing the ball, all them things. But then on the offensive side, the weakest link to me was Jalen Hurts, right? So when you talk about pressure and what have you done for me lately, you cannot be the highest paid player on the offense, let alone the team, and look like the weakest link on the offense, let alone the team. So speaking of the pressure part, that's the only thing. And I think Jalen Hurts will bounce back. I think he's a phenomenal player, right? He has that leadership quality that you can't teach. It's just something in you. And I think he works extremely hard at his craft, so I think he'll be better. But if you ask me the question of pressure and to prove something, you got to prove that. Because now a guy like Howie, the GM, he gives you everything you need. I thought we had a great running back last year with DeAndre Swift. That wasn't good enough. Howie wanted better. Cool. We go take, I was going to say still, but we go take the Giants' best player, Saquon Barkley, who's really, really, really good. Yep. And then wide receivers, right? A.J. Brown, you already know who he is, but then Smitty. Yep. We gave him a new contract, right? Got a solid tight end, a solid offensive line. So my thing is, Jalen Hurts, we give you everything you need, and go produce. And I think he will. I think this year we'll have that same type of year he had, the Super Bowl run. I think he's that good. But if he does not have that type of year, and if he's not even close to that type of year, I think it'll be a lot of questions of what are we going to do for the future? Because one thing about Howie, he's never satisfied. If you don't believe me, ask Carson Wentz.
You can ask me. He cut me 5 times. With that being said, I agree with Shady wholeheartedly. I love Eagles topics because I've watched or been in every Eagles game since, 2013. So I just love talking about the Eagles because I just know them far too well, both fortunately and unfortunately. Hurts got a ton to prove this season. I remember when Carson Wentz was that dude in Philadelphia. I mean, that dude. Carson Wentz tore his ACL, MCL, LCL, played the next play, converted a 2-point conversion, and then left the game. Wow. Eagles ended up winning a Super Bowl that season, the first Super Bowl in the franchise's history. He fractured his back. He came back. He goes to the playoffs. Jadeveon Clowney, late hit, concussion. I remember that Carson Wentz era. I remember Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, writing the foreword to Doug Peterson's book. And Doug Peterson somehow with Jeffrey Lurie being gone 1 year later. I remember Carson Wentz being replaced for Jalen Hurts after Jalen Hurts was drafted in the second round. I remember all of those things. So you can love a player in the NFL, particularly if you're a part of the Eagles franchise. I remember Michael Vick signing a $100 million deal, and 2 years later the Eagles said, hey, we got a 1 year, $7 million deal for you. You can take it or we can cut you. You choose. It's just how it goes down. So if you're Jalen Hurts, you have to perform first and foremost because of who you play for. Remember Howie Roseman said 4 years ago he wants a quarterback factory. Howie's words, not mine. And to some degree, he's actually done it. Carson Wentz, Nick Foles went to a Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts shows up, he goes to a Super Bowl, he's actually done it. Hurts has to deliver because what I realized, Joy, what I realized, Slick and Shady, is there's not enough of a sample size and a consistent enough sample size for me to know who Jalen Hurts is.
Right.
There isn't. His first game, well, first off, in the NFL, he wasn't good enough to even be an active player to start the season. He wasn't active in his first games, right? Then he starts finally, I think it was week 14, and he beats the Saints led by Drew Brees. I'm thinking to myself, this dude is a dude. He goes on to lose the next 3 games. Then his sophomore season, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. We go to the playoffs, but he was by far the weakest link. He couldn't throw to save his life. Then A.J. Brown shows up, and Jalen Hurts was maybe one of the best quarterbacks in football. MVP runner-up, goes to a Super Bowl. Then last year, he falls short. I don't know who Jalen Hurts is. And if you do, you're either an oracle, a sorcerer, or you're guessing. Because you really don't have enough of a consistent sample size to know who Jalen Hurts is either. The only thing I know is that Jalen Hurts plays best when he's doubted. Freshman year at Alabama, doubted. Goes to Oklahoma, doubted. Gets replaced by Tua, thus has to replace Tua to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, doubted. When Jalen Hurts is doubted, he is at his best. And this year, once again, he is being doubted because he brought the doubts on himself. So I anticipate that he will play well, but he's got a lot to prove because Howie Roseman and the Eagles are always striving for greatness. Either get on the train or they will keep it moving without you. I promise you that.
Yeah, incredibly well said. I think for me, the number one has to prove that last year was an aberration. Because to Shady's point, like, he was a guy that was continually getting better. We didn't know exactly how good he was, but he was always getting better, slowly but surely getting better. But now he's been paid $51 million, 6th highest in whatever category you want to put it among quarterbacks. Was he a top 10 quarterback last year? There's no way. So he has the salary to live up to, which he didn't have prior to this. But the other part for me is, and this is can Jalen Hurts be the reason that other guys are better? When I look at his success, it was because he had a great defense. And as you guys know, when you have a great defense, you're going to call your offense a little bit different. You can be conservative. You're not looking as much from your quarterback, right? You said it. Like, he was okay as a passer, and then A.J. Brown shows up, and suddenly now he looks like a different.
Yep.
That's because of somebody else coming in. When you're getting paid what Jalen Hurts is getting paid, and where the Philadelphia Eagles want to go, then he has to demonstrate, I can make other guys better. I'm not reliant on how my defense plays. If we need offense, I can deliver it. If I don't have A.J. Brown, or I don't have a great receiving core, I don't have a great running back, like, I can produce what we need to win games. That's the biggest question I have about Jalen Hurts. Is like, can he be, as a guy who's being paid $51 million a year, for that price tag, I want a guy who makes other guys better. I want a guy who makes the game easier for them because of what he does. And that, I don't know whether Jalen Hurts has the requisite capability of doing that. That's what he has to prove to me this season.
I think Jalen Hurts has a lot to prove, but I think the Eagles have a lot to prove, too. The Eagles have been inconsistent as well.
No doubt.
They do.
The defense went from number 2 to 26 last year.
Terrible.
Yeah, no doubt.
He doesn't play that side of the ball.
Terrible.
Now, look, Jalen Hurts had a down year, and the biggest thing was turnovers. The biggest thing was turnovers. He went from 8 turnovers to 20 last year. To me, that's all the difference. When we talk a lot about Dak Prescott, who's obviously in the division, and the year that he had from one year to the next, he controlled the turnovers tremendously. He had an all-pro season last year, and a big part of that was he didn't turn the ball over at the same rate that he was before. Turnovers matter. We talk about this all the time. Generally, teams that win the turnover battle do what? Win the game. They're significant. They're not all made the same, but they still very much matter, especially when you're talking about multiple turnovers throughout the game, and one player who touches the ball the most out of everyone is the one that is responsible for those turnovers. So he has to be better, but I think the Eagles have to be better overall as well. The issue with Jalen Hurts is, to your point, we haven't seen a long enough, consistent, high-level amount of play from him to say, oh, he's in Burrow's category. He's in Allen's category. He's in Mahomes' category. He's in these categories of guys that we know what they're going to do year in and year out. Lamar Jackson, we know what he's going to do in the regular season, year in and year out. He's going to win. But what I do know about Jalen Hurts is his high is the Super Bowl and playing well in the Super Bowl. His low might be pretty bad. But his high is playing well in a Super Bowl against the current dynasty. So I think I'll take that. When you're looking around the NFL, how many guys can say right now that they've played in a Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl?